We've been exploring the challenges British South Asians face within football, while also celebrating the talent within the community. But what exactly does the future look like? The PFA's Asian Inclusion Mentoring Scheme is a 5-year strategy set up to improve Asian representation in football, providing a support network for those in academies.
We're now into year 4 of the 5-year strategy. So at this stage now, a lot of the work that we're doing is actually embedded within the clubs. The boys are doing really well now. We're seeing more and more players progressing from the 18 to 21s, and some of the 21 players now getting their first team appearances, going out on loan. So it's been really positive. Coming through me and Zesh, we had no one. It was actually a trial and error. You know, we had no resource, we had no mentor, we had no one to pick the phone up to. If we did, you know, hopefully it would have been really different. So I think players coming in now, that support work is there for them. We've had some great successes, but if you can grow it more and have buy-in from the stakeholders, I feel like it could really change the game maybe the next 5 to 10 years as well.
Where do women fit into AIMS? How many kind of regularly get involved in the programme and are part of like the system?
At the moment, we're waiting too far down the line to increase participation. We have to start education and awareness with the parents when the kids are 3 and 4, because our data shows us on AIMS that a lot of the players who are getting professional contracts and getting scholarships, they didn't start at 9 or 10, they actually started at 3 or 4. So their parents would take them to grassroots clubs, you know, little kickers, and then joining grassroots teams at 5, 6, 7, getting to pre-academy at 8, 9, and then progressing on from there. So I think that's where we really need to start and plan long term.
My role in the AIM programme is kind of be that mentor to the younger lads coming through now. I'm there to kind of mentor any lads coming through the youth system if they need advice, because believe me, in football there's a lot of ups and downs. That's where you need the mental side to kind of come through that, make a career out of it.
The AIMS programme I'm so grateful for, and I think it's so important because, you know, every time I've gone to an event I've learned so much, especially from the senior lads, the ones who have already done it, their positions I'm trying to get to. You know, whenever I talk with them, they always give me great advice.
We're here today at our Premier League Emerging Talent Festival. This is part of our South Asian Action Plan. We've got some fantastic talent.
I would like to go professional like Messi because I love the way he moves the ball.
I love football so much. As soon as I started kicking it,
I would like to play goalkeeper because I save a lot of shots.
it's like gives more like Asians an opportunity like to become professional.
These events are great. It gives the kids that little bit of hunger. It shows them that little bit of hard work that you need to do more.
And some of these are exceptional players. They've got the chances there, so it's just about parent support, club support, and that's it. Lots of encouragement, lots of praise, and honestly, they can make it.
We've seen them only about here right now. They could easily soar up here.
The purpose of the South Asian Action Plan has lots of different outcomes, but one of them is widening the net, giving talent such as we're seeing on display today the opportunity to experience an academy environment. Hopefully that will lead to more filtering up in years to come into the professional game. If we want our game to stay ahead and the Premier League to be the world's best league and the EFL to be the one of the best pyramids in world football, we know we have to keep evolving our talent pool, and that's why it's so important for us as a legacy.
Festivals like this are just one example of the game's stakeholders' attempts to find more South Asian talent in this country. Is it enough to tackle the issue?
We launched our No Room for Racism action plan over 2 years ago, and one of the core pillars of that is our South Asian action plan, particularly focusing on the player pathways. When we looked at the representation of boys, particularly of a South Asian heritage in the academy system, it didn't reflect society. And for equality purposes, for making sure that football and our academies are absolutely for everyone, everywhere, that was important for us, but also from a competitive advantage perspective, from a talent ID standpoint, we were overlooking large parts of the community, and we felt that was really important for both of those reasons that we initiated that plan. We know this is a long-term plan and there's not going to be a solution overnight. What I can say from the Premier League is that we're absolutely committed to improving the pathways for young boys of South Asian heritage into our academies, and ultimately for increasing the representation of boys from that particular background. We've already seen 1,000 young boys take part in our emerging talent festivals over the last year, and off the back of those, grassroots coaches. Over 200 have been offered CPD opportunities with Premier League clubs, and they're really a good platform to start building those relationships and those connections between our club academies and those communities.
In terms of the FA, we've got the Bringing Opportunities to Communities Phase 2 strategy. We launched it in 2019. We've got 5 big pillars of work that we do. One of them was really around education of the FA itself and making sure that the FA understands the barriers and some of the things we need to do in this space. And that is what people like me with lived experience have tried to do, as well as some of my colleagues. We've got a piece around pathways, which is what are the pathways and what do they look like if you're a coach, if you're a referee, because those are the kind of areas, obviously, that we do have some control over. We have a piece around grassroots and the way in which we engage with our grassroots community. That's primarily the 50 or so county FAs. We have the women's section. The women's piece is, of course, all about the role modelling. It's from the legacy of the UEFA Euros. And then we have a 5th pillar, which underpins everything, which is around our comms and engagements. Things around Football and Me, which is our flagship Asian inclusion series that we're now into season 2, which is really about telling stories, because ultimately, you know, we want to make sure that we're telling a positive story of the people that have made it in the game.
So in August 2022, we launched the Together strategy, which was our 5-year plan to address all ED&I aspects across the game. Now, one of the key points of that strategy was its vision. And its vision states that the EFL and its clubs want to be reflective and representative of the demographics in which they serve. We work very closely with the Premier League, with the PFA, and we fundamentally believe in the AIMS programme that the PFA have established. That's why we haven't created a standalone South Asian Action Plan.
We've seen various initiatives before. Chelsea ran their Asian Star programme for a decade, but should there be one strategy across the board?
All stakeholders have to get together, join up the thinking. So don't work in silos where one organisation is releasing a programme to do X and another one releases another one and does something else here. Pool the resources together, learn from one another.
They need to collaborate better. There are some initiatives that take place. Some are really good. Some, for me, are a bit window dressing and doesn't go deep enough to the problems themselves.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, you know, if you've got, for example, let's say a football festival focused towards South Asian or ethnically diverse communities, well, what next? What's happening next after that day?
People make the intention of starting something or say, we're going to do this, and then nothing happens, and 5 years later, 10 years later, you're wondering why has nothing moved.
I see very little has changed, and we're still having these conversations. We can't talk to a group of people that we know nothing about. So for me, it's more about dismantling that system and starting from scratch.
What we want to do is complement each other's work and hopefully build upon that, not duplicate. And that's part of the discussions that we have to make sure that we are maximising the efforts that we're all collectively putting in.
There's different touch points which not every stakeholder can be involved in. So, for instance, the grassroots game and the professional game have different aspects that need to be delivered on. Our clubs are really the heartbeat of the EFL, and when we see greater representation and reflection within them now, I am saying that we don't believe in quotas and putting a fixed number, but we are challenging our clubs to be reflective of what their population is. So when a club comes to us and says, our population is 9% South Asian, but we're sitting at 4% in our academy, one of the things that we expect to see in their action plan is, well, how are you going to make up that 5%? And that's what we want to see, that's success. If we can take those numbers of what they are now and it's getting closer to that representation, we should then from there see some fantastic work being done by our clubs, seeing representation on the pitch, in the stands, in the offices and in the boardrooms to allow us to really be reflective of what the demographics of not just the communities, but overall is what England and Wales look like as well.
I think there is some merit in potentially clubs being not forced, but kind of looking at doing things slightly differently. So if there is a target in place, it potentially would lead them to start thinking of different ways in which they can engage a wider pool of players. I don't think that is a bad idea. I think it's one that clubs in the Premier League and the EFL, etc., you know, some of those that are responsible for recruitment could consider.
I think what we need to do is to talk about targets in coaching, targets in administration, so that we have a diversification which is meaningful and more of an equitable system. And that would then lead to decisions being made, such as on the question of what we do about the lack of South Asians in football, I think will create a more of a level playing field.
It'd be great to work with 4 or 5 pioneer clubs to say, could you do some experiments of working around some of these solutions, and then we'll come back and share it. Because that's the way it's going to happen. It's going to happen organically, right, through actually showing clubs and getting clubs engaged in it.
There's so much stuff
that is going on in this area, and it feels a lot like there are different pockets of things going on. Should there be now a more targeted approach to really make a difference and an impact if you all just kind of work together?
We've already started to have conversations about how we bring the whole thing together, and I think that will continue. I think there's been attempts in the past. They haven't always worked, and ultimately I think, you know, we're all better for it if we work together. Yes, we should definitely do more of that cross-collaboration, pooling resources and kind of operating in a way that we complement each other.
Since filming, Sky Sports News has learned that the FA is bringing English football together regularly to discuss South Asian inclusion. This work is ongoing and is part of its ambition to increase collaboration between key football stakeholders where they have similar programmes. Later this year, the FA will also publish its first strategy specifically targeting South Asian communities to drive participation in areas within its remit, such as coaching and refereeing. This isn't a new conversation, but that doesn't mean it doesn't still need addressing. It's up to the game now to discover football's hidden talent.
Use your voice as a white ally. You've got to speak out and have that kind of zero tolerance approach, because people have to learn.
The talent's out there, so why are we not finding it?
It's a generational thing, but someone has to start it, and I think it has started.
My advice is always don't believe in the myths that you have heard.
It's not going to be an overnight success. 20 years ago, we would not be having this conversation. I think you have to see every progress as progress.
Thank God Lionel Messi wasn't born South Asian, because if he were, he wouldn't have got into an academy. Biologically, we're all the same.